How many people have not been at the Institute before? Okay, welcome, definitely welcome. The Cress Welsing Institute of Psychiatry and Social Research is simply a monthly lecture from September through June. The sole purpose of the lecture is to talk about racism and aspects of racism. The reason that I conduct this lecture series is because I'm a psychiatrist, a general psychiatrist and child psychiatrist. And long ago I determined that racism, white supremacy is the most important thing that black people need to understand. There's nothing more important that we need. Yes. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Racism, white supremacy is the most important thing that we have to understand as black people. I'm even saying at this point in time, we cannot have mental health if we don't understand racism. We can't have intelligence unless we have an understanding of racism, white supremacy, and we cannot have respect for ourselves if we do not understand racism, white supremacy. The reason being is that racism is the dominant dynamic that is taking place not only in this area of the world, but throughout the world. It's the dominant dynamic that determines everything that really happens in our lives. There's nobody that is doing their own thing. We are by and large doing what the force of racism, white supremacy is pushing us to do. Now, the way that we gain power is to have a counterforce, a specific counterforce. But we can't have a counterforce if we do not understand what the force is all about. As an analogy, if someone got on the football field, they can put on a jersey, but if they don't understand the game that is being played, the moves that they make will just be nonsense on the field. The same with basketball, the same with checkers, the same with chess. You've got to understand what is the dynamic going on the field. So I selected as the main topic tonight the power of images in the system of racism, white supremacy. I'm going to begin, for the people who haven't been here before, by talking about my thesis on racism. And next week, I'm going to be talking in London, England, about the same topic. So you all wish me well. Thank you. So let's talk about what racism is all about, because people in London need to understand racism. All over England, people in France, people in Russia, people all over the world, people in Africa need to understand what is this thing called racism, because time has passed for us to be complaining. See, we can complain, we can protest, we can march, and we can just do that forever. And racism won't stop unless we end up doing something very specific or some very specific things based on what it is that racism actually is. So, this is the basic lesson. Neely Fuller, and if you turn to the second page, number 2, in the handout, and I have my definition of racism, but I also have the statement by Neely Fuller, Jr. And Neely Fuller, Jr., everybody must get a copy of his book, Textbook for Victims of Racism. Ms. Raymond has her copy, and it looks like it's really been read. Okay. Neely Fuller, Jr. said that racism, he's the first person, and to me he is one of the most important thinkers in the 20th century, because he said that racism is a system. Now this thing is supposed to write. That racism is a system. That's quite different than saying racism is just somebody doing something that is mean or something that is unjust. He said racism is a total system. And his statement here is a very important statement. This cutout appears on each issue of the Palm Beach Gazette newspaper that comes out of Florida. They put this statement that Neely Fuller wrote on their paper every issue. If you do not understand white supremacy racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And I maintain that's why we greet each other by saying, hey, what's happening? Hey, what's happening? We repeat that maybe 100 times a day because we don't really understand what is going on, what is pushing us, what is happening to us that is different than what we expect to happen. So I met Mr. Fuller in 1967, and I met him at a Black Power meeting, after a Black Power meeting. I wanted to understand. I was training in psychiatry. I had concluded that racism, this thing, racism, was making black people mentally ill. And I used to think that racism was being caused by economic forces, that it was a way of, paying black people less money than you pay white people and you can make more profit. But that didn't seem to be an adequate explanation, so I was still looking for what is the answer about racism. So after this Black Power Committee meeting, went to a social gathering, and this man that was sitting over across the room, he said, racism is a system. I didn't know him. And when he said it, it just clicked. When you're looking for the answer for something, and you could be moving all around and looking and looking and looking, and then you walk into a situation and boom, you hear somebody say, racism is a system. So I started talking to this gentleman, and I used to live right over there on Fairmont Street, 743 Fairmont. Met him, used to sit up all night talking. There was another gentleman, a friend of mine, who was training. He was an orthopedic surgeon. And the three of us would sit and debate these ideas back and forth. But Mr. Fuller was saying racism is a system, and he had written a lot of material since the 1950s. And he used to carry it around in an orange suitcase. And it was handwritten, beautifully printed on notebook paper. And so the orthopedic surgeon said, I will type it. It was 1,300 pages. He typed it between surgical cases. Now, I can't type. He was typing. He said, I'll type it. And I said, I will help to get it published. It took 17 years. 1967 to 1984. Now, somebody said, Frances Welsing, in your life, you're going to work 17 years with a person to get there. I would have said, no way, Jose. But having encountered the material, and I just kept saying, this book has got to be published. 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 Lost so much money. Finally, in 1984, it came out. Everybody should get a copy of the textbook. That's a short title. Textbook for Victims of Racism. We used to call it the Code, the Black Code. When I was teaching at the medical school, I used to have Mr. Fuller give a lecture, not once a month. See, this goes back to the 70s, because I taught from 68 to 75 until I got too radical. But every Monday night, from 8 until 1 o'clock in the morning, every Monday night. So people from the community, students, and everybody used to come down to the auditorium in a medical school. But anyway, that's the history part. He said that racism is a system, and the system is about white power over non-white powerlessness. The people who classify themselves as white on the planet having power over the people that they classify as non-white. So, being a psychiatrist, I said, why? Now, he used to say, Francis, the why is not important. But I said, no, the why for myself. I mean, we wouldn't, fume and fuss. But I just said, no, I got to find out, well, if this power equation exists on planet Earth, it didn't always exist, but it came into existence. So if this power equation of white over non-white came into existence, it must have come into existence for a reason. What is the reason? And that's what science is all about. Asking questions, why does something happen? What is it? Why does it exist? And little children know it, very young children know to keep asking, why? See, they come into the world, and here's this big world they come into, and they see all these things. And when they ask the question why, they are asking about cause and effect. So any of you who have children or grandchildren, children will say, but why? Why? And somebody will say, be quiet. Shut up. Don't say that anymore. See, just say, I don't know why. I'll try to help get the answer for you. Because that's turning on the brain computer to think and to reason why. So, 1967, 1968, 1969, I was standing in my kitchen doing the dishes and cooking. And the brain computer came with the printout. And I said, I've got the answer to racism, just like that. Now he said it was a system. He said that the system operated in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. That's all areas of people activity. See, when people say, we got to get some economics, and that's the answer. Or we got to get some education, that's the answer. Or we got to get a job. No, all of this is tied together, creating a system. So that they can give, if they decided in economics, let's say, give every black person $3 trillion. Everybody who can trace their ancestry back to enslavement. Come down to the Bureau of Engraving where the money is printed with your big suitcases and get your $3 trillion. Now, some people think that would be the answer. But what are you going to buy with the $3 trillion? See, somebody want to buy a Mercedes and a boat and what's that new little car called? Huh? No, what's that other one? PT Cruiser. You see, in other words, wherever you take the money, if the system is existing, goes right back out of our hands to further support the system. Do you see, like you can go to school. I went to school for I don't know how many years, but I didn't learn anything about racism, white supremacy. Do you see, I don't know of any university or college that teaches about the system of racism, white supremacy. I know I tried to start teaching it. You see, I did. I was a professor, assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics, Howard University Hospital, Howard University College of Medicine. And I thought I was doing something wonderful. If we learn about racism, and then one day I heard, Frances, they're going to deny you promotion and tenure because of your political ideas. Now, this is all black situation. So I go running to the dean. What political ideas? Because he said, I said, I understand I want to be denied promotion and tenure because of my political ideas. What political ideas? He said, that paper that you wrote. He didn't know the name of it, and I had only written the one paper. So I said, you mean the Cress theory, because Cress is my maiden name. The first paper I wrote on racism, I entitled The Cress Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism, White Supremacy. And I said, but what's wrong with the paper? He said, it doesn't make sense for you to say that white people are envious of black people because of their color. And I said, but I have all these letters from white people. You see, but that wasn't the point. The point is, if you are in a power system of racism, white supremacy, the last thing that the system wants is to be decoded. The system wants to be able to say, we are in a democracy. Everybody is equal. Do you see? And so we go walking on with that until black people start dying from hypertension, diabetes, obesity. You see, you name it, because we keep running up and thinking this is going to open the door, and the door doesn't open. You see, or we stop knocking our head against it, and it still doesn't open. Do you see? So the system won't say, no, this is a system of racism, white supremacy. But to get back to it's a system, and I said, well, why? What would fundamentally produce this kind of response? And I just went back, and this is why school is important. School is important. We should codify ourselves. Everybody should go to school for the first 30 years of their lives. See, no getting married. If you're real disciplined, hold off the sex. Don't let that interfere. It's not going anyplace. And they got all these drugs now, so the point being, going to school and getting as much information. See, go to school and learn about going to the library. Because much of what I did, I told you, I wasn't taught about racism. But when I started thinking about it, I would just go to the library, get all kind of books, start looking in books that you're not even supposed to look into. Because you are looking for answers about what is in your head. So saying why, and I started thinking, well, wait a minute, the system has been saying certain kinds of things. One thing was that we were genetic inferiors, is that right? Genetic inferiors. The second thing is that we were minorities for all the non-white people. And I just started thinking about what I'd learned in their schools. Number one, that the people of color are the overwhelming majority of people on the planet. They're 9/10 of the people on the planet. Look like the people in this room. So I said, well, no, this is incorrect. And then the genetic inferiors. One of the things we learned in psychiatry, if somebody says, I'm superior. You know I'm superior. You know I'm superior? That the only reason somebody has to announce superiority is that they're not feeling that. See, that is a projection. They are not feeling superior. And so then where is the genetic problem? In genetics, you learn that the ability to produce skin coloration is due to the pigment, black pigment, called melanin, M-E-L-A-N-I-N. If you have goo gobs of genetic ability to produce melanin, you appear crystal black. A little bit less, you look brown. A little bit less, you look so-called red. A little bit less, you look yellow. Almost none at all or none at all is white. Black plus white equals what? Colored. Brown plus white equals colored. So-called red plus white equals colored. Yellow plus white equals colored. That's because the ability to produce this pigment is a genetically dominant trait. The failure to produce it, which will leave skin appearing white, is a genetic recessive trait. So instead of being genetically inferior, the people of color are genetic dominants. So how do we get from there to racism? Real simple. Let's say this is the planet, and here's North, and this will be Europe. Remember, starting in the 15th century, people who classify themselves as white started coming on their exploratory trips. And everywhere they landed, it was colored people, right? When the men had sex with the women of color, the white disappeared. So at some point they must have thought, well, what if these colored men got in boats and started going this way? O.J. Simpson, Kobe Bryant, ships. They concluded that white would disappear. So I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is the answer to racism. If they concluded that they did not want to disappear, you see, and I've lectured to people who classify themselves as white, and I've asked them, do you want your children to be colored? Do you want your grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-great-great-great-grandchildren to be colored? I'm polite and they're polite. What do they say? No. So I say, okay, if you mean this, if you mean no, then you have to engage in certain specific behaviors to prevent that from happening. See, as quiet as it's kept, that's what terrorism is all about. Terrorism is about these colored people all over the planet thinking that they want to be in charge of themselves. The weapons of mass destruction is the non-white genetic material. Are you with me, class? See, when you see a picture of a terrorist, all this hooping and hollering about terrorists, it's not anybody that looks like Timothy McVeigh. See, there's a white male, they say, who has been sniping and shooting at cars in Ohio. You don't hear any hysteria, yelling, give him the death penalty, find him quickly. No, got to find bin Laden and Saddam Hussein. Are you following me? So I said, oh, this is what racism is about. Racism is a power system about white genetic survival. And so once that became clear, then a lot of other things really began to fall into place. Do you see? Because instead of black people learn, at least we learned where I grew up on the south side of Chicago, if you're black, get back. If you're brown, stick around. If you're yellow, you're mellow. And if you're white, you're all right. Now, I'm going to go to London, and I will say it to the people. And the people in London will be able to say the same thing. So you can go to France, and the people who speak French, the colored people who speak French, learn the same thing. Wherever there has been color confrontation, meaning white people coming amongst people of color, the first step is to get in bed with the women and to produce different shades of color. And then line the people up and say, if you're black, get back. Brown, stick around. Yellow, mellow, white, you're all right. Now, why was that important? Why is this important? Well, divide and conquer is important because anytime you have a minority controls the majority by divide and conquer. See, on a plantation, it's just a few white people on the plantation. I mean, George Washington, Martha. They had 300 slaves. That's why so many black Washingtons. You see, they had hundreds of slaves. So what would prevent the 300 slaves from deciding to overtake? Just make a move on the big house. You see, but if you were skillful, and you said, now, if you come and tell me what they're talking about, I'll give you a little extra piece of fat back. Do you all understand? That happens right now on a job. All the black people could want to be promoted on a job. No, but the white people are very skillful. They'll select one or two, say, now, I'm going to move you fast forward. What did she say about me? Asking about another black person. What did that black person have to say about the white people? Does anybody in the room not know about how that works? See, in Mr. Fuller's book, one of the things that he had stops. Stop snitching on one another for reasons of personal gain. See, that's something that works. That's divide and conquer. And so divide and conquer is one thing, but what is another reason that you can say this is scientifically determined language. The reason being is that the darker the complexion, the greater the genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation. Do you see? So you have to rain down on people real hard. And so all over the world, white people move to miscegenate, and then they bring the miscegenated group closer to them. See, that really was what happened with Jesus. See, it's all kind of stuff going on about Jesus. In the handout is what did Jesus look like, really, from the New York Times. Jesus was a Palestinian. The Palestinians are people of color. The Romans and the Greeks had gone into North Africa. They had miscegenated the people, brought the miscegenated class up close to them. Jesus was a darker brother. I'm going to rewrite the story. See? The Romans came in to conquer the people. Along with the conquering comes rape and miscegenation. Do you see? And then the people start trying to get closer to get, more goodies to the master. So you have the class that gets close to the master because they're the master's offspring. Now, Jesus was probably a darker person, and he came along with some rebellious ideas against the Romans. That sounds like my little story in the medical school. See, I'm not talking about the color so much, but the concept that, wait a minute, I can explain why the Romans are doing what they're doing and what ought to be done to stop the Romans, so to speak. And I thought that I would be doing something that was valuable, but ended up, wait a minute, you're making trouble. And it wasn't the black people who arrived at that. I'm certain that the white people said, and I was told as much, you got to get rid of her if you want to get this money from us. Do you see how that works? So Jesus was, somebody coming from down under and saying, let's oppose the Roman rule. And so the Romans were really the people in charge of killing Jesus. But they would just get some people to say that Jesus was bad amongst his own group. That's like giving Colin Powell the assignment to go in front of the UN and talk about the weapons of mass destruction that he was told to talk about if you want a good job. Do you see, this is nothing personal, it's just the dynamics of power. The dynamics of power. Okay, so the more color, the greater the threat to cause white genetic annihilation. So once we understand that, you see, we can understand tanning. While the black people are taught the more color they have, the uglier they are. I went to Antioch College. I was the only black girl in my class. And I was absolutely amazed. Do you see? Because come the summertime, the white people would be laying, it would be around end of March and April. The sun would first come out, and they would be stripping to get a suntan. And I was said, what are they doing? Getting a suntan. People didn't do that on the south side of Chicago. Okay. They were getting a suntan. Do you see? Or in the girls' shower, people coming up, oh, Frances, now I'm your color. What is that all about? if black is supposed to be ugly? You see, but think about all of the black people who suffered self-image damage because they were told they are dark, and because they're dark, they're supposed to be ugly. See, it's hardly a family of people of color all over the planet that have not gotten some degree of color sickness. Is that right? See, India's whole culture is based around color sickness. They have advertisements in the newspaper looking for a light-skinned wife. See, there was a big article in the New York Times about this a couple of weeks back, talking about color and how even what they call caste, based on color. Because India was invaded by whites, making a lighter group, and then different waves of whites came and were in charge. You see, and so then they started the same color sickness that comes about with color confrontation. Yes. Okay. I don't know where Danny is. He said that the British had a system of having the soldiers have sexual relations, paid them to have sexual relations with the women to produce this. No, to produce, a spectrum of colors. Do you see? And then you start dividing the people and having them go against one another based on color and shade of color. Like, do we have that going on right now? See, who wants to go to the hospital and see a crystal black baby? That's not ours. No, go back to the nursing station and check the name. See, sick. Color, features, hair texture. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? Do you see? Now, don't feel bad. Just embrace yourself and say, isn't that fascinating? See, because black people and people of color did not impose that. That was imposed when the 1/10 population said, for our survival, it's necessary for us to dominate the whole world of colored people. So how will we do it? What schemes do we have to use to control this? And if we can get the 9/10 to begin to participate with us, in fact, it's the 9/10 that hold up the 1/10. Now, what if the 9/10 decoded the system and started behaving in another way? See, these are the pillars that are holding up the 1/10. See, and this is not about hating white people. Let's give white people an A+. Giving them an A+. Now, they have done some horrible things. But in other words, what did they do? They surveyed the planet and said, what's going on here? Oh, wow. Everybody is colored. And then after 9 months, wow, the children all look like the mothers. We could disappear. What do we have to do so that we don't disappear? Now, if they like themselves, it appears that some of them like the way they look. Well, what we have to do is send in the missionaries They believe in God. They believe in a higher power. All over the world, they got this thing about God. Now, what we have to do is we have to introduce an image of God in our image. That'll be the most skillful thing that we can do. So then they will start looking at us, and they will see God. Now, let's give them some more A pluses. A plus, 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 plus. Yes. Wait.
Thank you. Dr. Welsing, I'm not a scientist as you are, but isn't it a fact that white folks are disappearing on the planet? I seem to keep running into literature whereby in Europe, for example, they are letting in large numbers of guest workers because they don't have enough quote unquote white folks to service the economy. So I guess what I'm saying is that despite their efforts and the pain and the trauma that they've caused to maintain their status as white, I guess the Almighty has something to do with it, and they're disappearing anyway.
But guess who else is disappearing?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, who else is disappearing?
Well, yeah, we're disappearing, and I think we're paying a penance because of the fact that without our participation, the system of racism, white supremacy would fall flat on its face tomorrow. But because we have been so trained and programmed, we're holding it up, and this is the price that we have to pay. And this is why we're disappearing as well. And I think that in the 21st century, I noticed in the 9 areas of people activity, you didn't put spirituality up there. And I remember I mentioned this to Mr. Fuller one time, and he kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And I guess I am a little out of my mind, but I think that the battle in the 21st century is going to be a battle over spirituality. Who is God? What does he look like? What does she look like?
Okay, let me go forward.
Etc.
Okay. Let me say this. Everybody's welcome to their point of view. I say self-respect is the highest form of spirituality you can engage in, because you were created. See, black people were the first people on the planet. We're the mothers and fathers of everybody. White people cannot produce color. Black people are the only people that can produce the total color spectrum, from crystal black to snow white. Look at this picture. You may not be able to see it in the back. This is a picture of an African group of people. And in the midst of this African group of people is a mutation to albinism. People of color can produce white. White skin is, in terms of genetics, it is a genetic deficiency state not defined by Frances Welsing, but defined by white people themselves. They just never thought that somebody would put them in the picture. You see, when you see albino tigers at the zoo, the tiger that just, knocked out its trainer in Las Vegas, that is an albino tiger. The parents were colored. It's a mutation, a genetic deficiency state, because they lack the enzyme tyrosinase, so they can't go forward and produce the color. You see, so this is what And the albinos are produced all over Africa. And my theory is that when the black people put the white people out, that's how they got in Europe. And that's how they got organized as a so-called race of people. And then they determined, wait a minute, we're going to come back and conquer the planet. But they are our offspring. They are our albino mutant offspring. So if we respect ourselves as the first people on the planet, the Creator made black people the first people on the planet, not monkeys, the first human beings on the planet. Do you see? And so, but we have been taken to a point of absolutely hating ourselves under the instruction of racism, white supremacy. We're the first people on the planet, and somehow we find ourselves calling ourselves dogs and bitches and whores and bow wows and thugs and gangsters. Do you all understand? Do you see? So if we say that's interesting, then we can hold our heads up and look, this is fascinating. How did we go from the first people, the first scientists, the first mathematicians, the first philosophers, the first people to discourse on God? How did we go from that to where we are now? You see, well, the reason is the dynamic of racism, white supremacy, that we simply didn't understand. We didn't understand. See, we didn't understand. Why would somebody take a black man and hang him in a tree and then cut off his genitals, take him home, and set him on fire? See, that's unusual behavior. See, there's no written record of any black man cutting off white men's testicles, putting them in his pocket and going home. So what would cause that pattern of logic? If we are talking about genetics, we have to get into a discussion of this. Looks like a man with glasses, but it's not. Does everybody understand the diagram? Okay, this is a diagrammatic view of male genitalia. Why is that important? This is what castration is all about, attacking the genitals, attacking the testicles specifically. Why would somebody think about doing that? If there is fear of genetic annihilation, the first thing the brain will go to is cut off the testicles. This is his weapon of mass destruction. Are you all with me? The genetic material is in the testicles. And so when some white person who says they're a police officer says, I thought he had a weapon, the person doesn't have any weapon. Could be somebody 14 years old. I thought he had a weapon. That's what they always say. He does. If you understand what is in their psyche. This is what is the weapon of mass destruction. And so they make a counter weapon. Got a picture of it in the handout. Page what is that? 10. Somebody sent this picture to me. His most important weapon, and they said his information, but look at what he's holding. He's not holding any book. Do you see his most important weapon? And I say that in the brain computer, the collective white and the collective white male brain computer, you see, when they think about, and see, this is why they want us just jumping up and down. See, turn on the TV, because the TV is our instruction about what we are supposed to be doing. We're playing, see, playing music, playing ball, jumping up and down, but not thinking. Not thinking. See, this is what they say, we are supposed to be the people who think. See, and that's where the expression, the slave, yours is not to reason why. Yours is but to do or die. See, just keep jumping up and down, dancing and clowning. Don't be quiet, because that's when the brain computer works. Have a lot of noise. Boom, 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 boom. See, have it blasting out of your automobile. Boom, 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 boom. See, because you could be driving, and the rhythm of driving, if it's quiet, you could think. No, you want to have a boom box in your car and give everybody around you high blood pressure, hopefully a stroke. Do you understand? So we'll give them another A. But the point is that they looked at this and said, he can annihilate me. And he got to that conclusion because, and there's a picture in here. See, all these things are in the paper, things that some people send me and things that I just find myself. It's all in the paper. They can't stop putting what they think in the paper. Turn to page 12, class. Everybody got page 12. See, this is a magazine that, they send magazines to the doctor's office hoping that you will just order them. So this Esquire magazine came to the office. And I said, what? See, this big, dark snake. A snake is a phallic symbol. This big brown snake or black snake wrapped around this naked white woman. This is the April issue of Esquire magazine that just came out. You see, because she says what? Her ideal mate is what? Tall, dark, and handsome. And don't anybody get excited about that poor Kobe Bryant. Poor OJ. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, if the white female is attracted to, like when I debated William Shockley a long time ago. Dr. Shockley was a Nobel Prize laureate who had invented the transistor. But at a certain point, he was on the faculty at Stanford University, and he was going around talking about black people are genetically inferior and they should accept payment to be sterilized. So I thought it would be important to debate Dr. Shockley, and I did. And at some point, Dr. Shockley said, this was on Tony Brown's show, Dr. Shockley said, Dr. Welsing, in your book, The Cress Theory, you say white females want to have black babies. What percentage of white women would you say want to have black babies, Dr. Welsing? So I was put on the carpet real quick, and I just thought, the same number that suntan. That was my answer. The same number that suntan, and that just shut him up. But the discussion basically was about, I wasn't calling him names. I simply said, the reason that you have to talk about black people's genetics is because you are fearful about your own genetic vulnerability. Do you see? So that if you don't have the ability to produce color, which is the human norm, then you say the inability to produce color is superior, and you start telling the people who make color that something is wrong with them genetically. But the reason that you know that they don't really believe that is because they love to eat chocolate. They love to drink coffee. They love to drink Coca-Cola. Anything that's dark, they want to keep putting it inside of their bodies. Or even getting a suntan when it can cause skin cancer. Oh, thank you. Jackie is reaching way back into the handouts. What year is this? This is 1999. This is on Vogue magazine. You may not be able to see it, but this is a white woman with dark tanning lotion all over her body in the magazine. You see, so while black people who are this color are taught to hate themselves, and white people are trying to make themselves this color. Do you see the trick that they played on us? Very, very deep trick, yes. Wait a minute. Wait.
When I was at the store, they're programming black women. There's a program called Half and Half. There's a program called Half and Half. 2 mothers with 2 daughters by the same man. One is a girlfriend, one is a wife, but the father is not with either one of them. I meant to buy the jet, but I didn't take enough money to the store with me.
Wait a minute, I'm not following. Say it again.
On the jet is a program coming out Half and Half, promoted by a black woman. Of course, the people who gave her the money were white, probably, are white. It's called Half and Half. It's a comedy sitcom. It's 2 mothers. Each single mother have a daughter by the same man. Neither one of the mothers are with the man. One mother is an ex-wife, and the other woman had her child out of wedlock. But neither one of them have a man. And you remember the guy who played in...
Now, wait a minute. Are these 2 white mothers?
No, they're sisters. They're black.
Oh, okay. I wanted to follow.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're black women. I said, they are programming 2 black women, single mothers, 2 daughters. And then there's a father who's not with either one of them. He's the guy who played in Temptations, who played Barry Gordy, that guy. He is the father. Okay, well, all right, well, you tell me.
I said they are actually, the one mother, she just had a baby by him. They are still together.
Okay.
Yeah.
But wait a minute, are we talking about black women and a black man?
No. I understand what she's saying, though, because I believe that to be true. Because what the whole series is indicating, it's all based around 2 black women raising and controlling the household. The man does not enter into the picture. There's no male leading either one of these families, but maybe one every 6th show. He shows up every now and then. So that sounds like Julia all over again. Yeah.
Okay, just updated Julia. Okay.
I'd just like to add to that the color purple is going to be a play, so I would like for you ladies to be a little easy on us next time it comes around.
Okay, well, let me go forward. If this is perceived as the thing that can cause white genetic annihilation, then this helps us understand why there is a war against black people in general and black men in particular. You see, in the handout, there's a whole discussion. Black men in D.C. need civic help. All of this is about unemployment. There's a whole study. You don't have the whole study. A crisis of black male employment. Unemployment and joblessness in New York City in 2003. But this is known, this is all over the country. You see, so if we say, well, why is this happening? Why is it that there are more black males in the penitentiary or in the prisons than in the universities? Because the system of racism is waging war against people of color, but black people in particular, because black people have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation. And so if we say, well, this is the center of attention, male genitalia, then this is the lateral view, and if you turn it around like this, what is this? This is a gun. And so in the white computer, it's like, he has weapon, can annihilate me, must create weapon, can do same thing. Now, is he succeeding in this? You see, because we don't understand racism, we don't understand white supremacy and how it works. So with what they do with our patterns of thinking, so warped against liking ourselves, they can come and bring guns into the community and say, use this to destroy yourselves. And what do we say? You see, in addition to the programming, paying certain people, what I want you to do, and I'm going to pay you a lot of money, I want you to portray gangsters and thugs. I want you to sing about killing. Not killing me. Killing your own people. Now, I'm going to pay you, and then I'm going to put you in the magazine as an entertainment star. And I'm going to have all the young people following in that direction. Now, I'm not faulting anybody. We don't understand. We don't understand what is going on. And as long as we don't understand, we fall victim to it. But we can begin to understand. We can begin to understand, why should we talk about people classifying themselves as white killing us if we can be seduced into killing ourselves? See, the largest number of young black men who are killed each year is being killed by other young black men. Why will they do this? What is influencing it? First of all, white supremacy and the dynamic of white genetic survival by any means necessary. Then they say, well, we can make young men feel depressed and hopeless, helpless. How do we do it? Remove the father from the home, and we will create a profound sense of vulnerability. And the child, I talked to a young man in my office last night. I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? Almost blew me out of my chair. He said, a sniper for the CIA. 14 years old. Not laughing. A sniper for the CIA. The man who just was given the death sentence, Mr. Muhammad. He said that he was working for the FBI and the CIA. And did he not stand up and say, I didn't have anything to do with it? Now, whether he's a Manchurian candidate, a brainwashed individual who was sent on that mission, and after the mission is over, you don't even know where you are or what you did. Colin Ferguson in New York and Staten Island, the same thing. You see, but if you remove guidance, then you can create and put confusion in its stead. Wait a minute, I didn't. Oh, who is Colin Ferguson? Oh, Colin Ferguson was a young black man who got on the train, I believe, commuter train. You see, and ended up shooting a number of people. And he was saying that he didn't do it, or voices were telling him to do it. Do you understand? Yes.
Dr. Welsing, would you comment on this new phenomena of down low, I call it down low syndrome? I notice white people are writing about it from time to time in different newspapers. One article I specifically remember...
Speak loud, because can people hear?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
One article I specifically remember is talking about some club where all these young men go, and young black males primarily go and wind up somehow having sexual relations with each other. And then
Can people hear? See, nobody can hear. Patsy, stand up or talk as loud as you can. Or
males go.
See, I turn around so that people, because I can hardly hear. Yes, go ahead.
There are clubs where young black males go, and great majority of them wind up. They're like, I guess, like a disco or something like that. And these are primarily young men who go there, and this down low thing. It took me a while to figure out what in the world it was. And they go to these clubs, and you've got a whole group of young black men having sexual relations with each other, and then coming back to their girlfriends. As we know, they say black women have one of the highest AIDS rates right now. I just want Dr. Welsing to comment on that, what is producing that, and how we can eliminate it.
Well, see, again, does somebody want to comment back there first?
Yeah, one day I was watching the Maury Povich show.
Real loud.
Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah. Yeah, one day I was watching the Maury Povich show, and I actually heard the same thing she was talking about. It was like a down low kind of, it wasn't a club exactly. It was just like people would meet up in desolate parts of the town, and they would just like have homosexual relations or just any type of relations with people they just felt like they just had to have to be with. If they saw someone they liked, they would just go over and just start talking to them, and that was it. Bing, bang, boom, they was doing it. And they had wives, they had like boyfriends at home. There were a lot of people that were just straight and just wanted to experience something and come back to their homes, and like nobody would know. They would just do it on a down low and come back to their home and bring the disease with them or whatever it is they contracted. Not everybody did, but I mean, there's a great chance you would, because these people you don't know, you're just down there having sex with them and just doing, things with them, quote unquote, and you're bringing it back to your homestead. And I actually did hear about it. They did on Maury Povich. You could like try to get some transcripts on it or something, from the show. I don't know how you would do that, but.
Well, see, I think, again, go back to all of these behaviors, or any pattern of behavior that we talk about is occurring within the system. The system encompasses everything. So if you say, well, what is the system actually about? And I say that the system is about people who classify themselves as white, what they think about themselves. See, if they don't like the way they look, as quiet as it's kept, which is why you have all of these shows about makeovers and transformations. Do you see? And add this and take off that. That all of this, from my vantage point, is a reflection of I don't like myself. If I don't like myself, I will degrade the act that produces me, which is sex. Sex is the act of self-reproduction. We used to say, training in psychiatry, tell me what you do in bed, and I'll tell you what you think of yourself. Do you see? But it's getting all stirred up now within the system of racism. Do you see where, first of all, it doesn't talk about what it really is. So everything is everything. I just looked at an article in the Sunday New York Times where young white people in college are now insisting that they have transgender dormitories. These are dormitories where the young people say, let's say it's a female supposedly, but she says, I'm not a female. I'm not anything. And males the same thing. And one female, now these are college-age students, where fellow transgender students helped her get the money so that she can have her breasts removed. Do you see where everything is getting all confused about sex? I say that it stems from, do you see, because white people do not dialogue about we don't like ourselves because we are a minority on the planet. And we're genetic recessive and we're mutants. They don't talk about that. So the logic that flows from that, you see, and don't anybody be offended, but same-sex marriage. See, all of these people, female to female, male to male, it's not a condemnation of the people, but what is the logic flow from that? That's moving towards zero reproduction. Do you see? So you start out, I don't like myself, and this winds down through the ages to a point where I won't reproduce. Do you follow me? I mean, I was absolutely astounded. This was just in last Sunday's New York Times. Do you see where I don't have a gender? I'm anything. Do you see? Now, I said, and I think it's in the ISIS papers, I looked at the logic of male homosexuality. And what takes place is what? Penis in mouth and penis in anus. Now, we're just looking objectively at that. Mouth and anus. I say that this comes from a sense of I don't have enough masculine substance, which a person can feel if male person can feel if they're just raised around grandmother, auntie, but no father. You see, something critical is missing. I need male substance. Do you see? It's just like your brain saying, I think you need to go buy some greens. That means that the body wants some vitamin A. The body knows that it can get vitamin A through the greens. So if it's a deficiency, your brain is saying, get some of this or get some of that to eat. So when penis goes in mouth and ejaculates, that's male substance going into the gastrointestinal tract. Are you all with me? This is the organ in the body that we use to feed ourselves. Or penis in anus. See, in medicine, if we can't give a person medication by mouth, very often the medication is given through the anus to be absorbed in order to feed the body. Now, what have we said? The system of racism, white supremacy, is saying, if I have anything to do with it, it's not going to be any black fathers. I'm already succeeding in having millions incarcerated. Systematic removal so that I can survive. Which takes me back to the image. Look in the front of the handout to the picture of Jesus on the cross. Now, as we know, Jesus is a black man. Don't they say in the Christian religion, he died so that we could have everlasting life? Who died? Black man died. Are you all with me, Claire? See, the brain is most of what we focus on, at the conscious level. That's just 10%. The brain is doing calculations all beneath that at the symbolic level, which is how white people can go from, I don't like not having color, to talking about chocolate is so erotic and I just love chocolate and I just have to have more chocolate and I don't feel I look right unless I have a tan. They are not conscious. Like I've had white people say to me, oh, I never thought about it like that before. No, because the system is not revealing itself. But if we are going to change our reality, we have to understand what the system is all about. The system is taking masculinity away from the black community. Sister, people are not doing their own thing. See, if a male child just has female hands touching him, that's one whole neurological experience. It's another experience to feel a man's hand. See, when you go downtown to these museums and you see these white men walking around holding the hands of some little 3-year-old person, that's not idle activity. That's a different arm, a different strength, a different hand than mother's hand. Do you see? And this is what white supremacy is creating. If they can create this dynamic. Do you see? Because right now what's going on in the high schools amongst black female children, they're fighting each other because I'm going with her. Don't you talk to her because I'm going with her. You see, so if you remove the male element and the sexual urge hits, you see, which is like people on farms. Let's talk about in Australia. If there's no women around, it's a whole lot of sheep. Do you all understand what I'm saying? Obligate bestiality. Obligate homosexuality in the prisons. But what is the dynamic that is producing it? White supremacy says, okay, that's okay. You have 3 choices. Woman, girl, baby. Up until recently, girl and woman were out. Baby. How many black women have called the man they sleep with baby? Raise your hand. Tell the truth. How many gentlemen have called a woman they sleep with mama? See, tell the truth. This is freedom. See, it's nobody that's in this room, in the D.C., in the United States, in the world that's non-white and free from white supremacy. Nobody. We're all victims of white supremacy, being impacted by this dynamic. So, how many gentlemen have called a woman they sleep with mama? Get a show of hands of truth tellers. Right? How many gentlemen have called the place where they sleep a crib? You see, the brain computer is just working out. Man who calls another man the man, calls himself baby, calls the woman he sleeps with mama, calls the place where he sleeps a crib, will call himself what class? Oh, class. Better speak up. This is exam time. Motherfucker. So what does that term mean? Which is exactly what I ended up saying to my mother. I said, Mom, don't worry. It's a political expression. It has to do with power. Baby compared to man is what? In terms of power. Powerless. See how quiet the vibe dropped? The vibe should not have dropped. Are we or are we not an oppressed people? Does an oppressed people have power greater than the oppressors? No. Do the prisoners have greater power than the warden? Let's repeat. See, this, we don't want this to go in. But this is why it keeps coming out in language, symbolic language. Somebody said Louis Armstrong. Somebody said, say, Pops, what's happening? And his answer was, not everything is cool. It was the white man is still in charge. The white man is in charge. The white collective is in charge. Does anybody have a problem with that? See, Mr. Fuller, in the early days, he used to refer to us as zeros. And the white people as digit man and digit woman. Now, that's just power mathematics. You see, it's no point in getting angry if you don't like a particular power arrangement. What do? You study, analyze, and say, now how can I change this? Not, it ain't so. This, ladies and gentlemen, if we can, you imagine if we got beyond the point of feeling some embarrassment about reality. I used to say, and this is a long time ago, I used to say to people, imagine being at a cocktail party, and it's white people and black people. And some white person says, oh, you're a doctor. Well, that's just wonderful. And you say, no, I'm actually a victim of white supremacy. As opposed to, yes, it is wonderful. See, then they'll just circle around you and everybody is laughing and glasses tinkling. Because an oppressed person who doesn't want to face that reality is very comfortable to be around for the oppressor. Now, an oppressed person who's very polite, but who, you know, they might have a zillion degrees, 59 Rolls Royces, 13 yachts, 14 houses. But they say I'm a victim of racism. Then no oppressor wants to be around that person. Because an oppressed person who is dealing with reality is uncomfortable for the oppressor. You see, but that's the reaction. We don't want to deal with that reality. See, it's like wanting to go to New York and telling yourself you're already there. You're still in D.C. No, if I'm in D.C., I want to get to New York, I have to do the thing to get to New York. In my fantasy, I can say, really, I'm looking out at the tower there, but that really is the Empire State Building. I'm already there. If we are able to face the reality, we can begin to make some traction. See, it's just like somebody wants to go to the Olympics and win the gold medal in track. They get a coach. Do they want the coach to tell them, you really are the greatest? Or if they really want to win the gold, do they tell the coach, tell me who has the fastest time on the planet? I want to know who has the fastest time. And I want you to be truthful telling me what my time is. And the coach comes back and says, I don't even think you ought to try because your time is so far behind the fastest time, I can't possibly see how you can catch up. But if the person is determined and they say, don't worry, coach, I just want to know what is my time today and what is the fastest time on the planet. So I will know what it is that I need to do each and every day because I am going to win the Olympic gold. Now, we could be saying that. No, we are oppressed. White supremacy has been dealing on the planet. You know, Jesus getting beat up by the Romans, that was 2,000 years ago. But they were just starting out there. Roman Empire, they had to move up to circumnavigating the planet and taking it all in. But if we decided we want to bring this to an end, the only reason I'm talking, not to make anybody feel bad, not even to make white people feel bad. I'm talking because the goal of replacing white supremacy with justice on this planet is what I think ought to be happening. And this is what I think all of us should be interested in. Mr. Fuller says success, the definition of success, is to not be subject to white supremacy. See, now you can have a whole lot of money. Bill Cosby had a whole lot of money. White supremacy took his son out. Michael Jackson had a whole lot of money. Michael even went so far, I'm going to turn myself white. Change my hair, change my nose. I'm going to make myself white. And I know they'll love me then. Didn't work. O.J. I saw in an interview that O.J. said, somebody said, what was the best thing that ever happened to him? And he said he was in a restaurant with some black people. And he passed a table, and some white people said, there goes O.J. Simpson with some Negroes. And he felt because he wasn't included in that group that he had been accepted. You see, but white people were calculating on something different. O.J. plus Nicole equals brown children. Translate, white genetic annihilation. Are you all with me? So let's go on to the passion. See, now I'm baptized Baptist, Christian Methodist. Don't anybody take offense. We're talking about religion under the system of racism, white supremacy. Religion under the system of racism, white supremacy. There was a point in time when the Romans said, if you can't beat them, join them. They're all following this heretic group that really is opposing us. So what we will do is adopt their religion and paint Jesus as white and have all of them bowing down. Now, when the movie came out, many black people had just flooded our souls. Oh, look what they're doing to Jesus. Look what they're doing to the white man. Now, they went and did all kind of historical research on Jesus. How tall the people were at the time. What kind of bony structure did they have? They got all kinds of detail. Except what? See, now when you're digging around and you're getting, the people were this height and this kind of body build at the time. And you don't say whether they're white or non-white, you know what? They're non-white. Because if they could, they would have said they were this build and this weight and their skins were white. No. They even had the actor who played the role, his eyes are blue. And so they changed, put some contact in so at least the eye would be brown. See, this is so fabulous and deep. Let's give them another A here. Make his eyes brown. See, and we'll just suck because we are an emotional people. Just suck him in. Look at him being beaten and bloody. And so what the programming is, when you sit and look at that, is feel sorry for the poor white man. Oh, Jesus. But don't feel sorry for the millions of black people who are dying from AIDS here and in Africa. Don't feel sorry for the people who are incarcerated. Don't feel sorry for the people who are the victims of police brutality. Don't feel sorry for the people who are unemployed. Feel sorry for white Jesus. You see, but the Creator works in wonderful ways. I'm talking about the Creator that is blacker than a trillion midnights. See, we got to get that straight. See, I wrote a prayer. Thou who art blacker than a trillion midnights, whose eyes shine brighter than a billion stars, whose hair doth coil tighter than a million springs, radiating all energy throughout the universe. We beseech thee, one and only one, to give us total strength to carry out thy will for the universe, to establish justice and live in peace. thou who are blacker than 1,000,000,000,000 midnights. Now, if you follow the news on science, what is the big substance that they're now finding in? Not a black hole, bigger than a black hole. Dark matter. Dark matter. Dark matter. Okay, but what are we looking at? Huh? Oh, somebody had a question. Wait, somebody else. Somebody else. Go ahead.
Hello. I was just going to comment about, I didn't see the Passion, but, talking to black people who have seen the Passion, it really broke my heart that they were like, oh, it's the truth. It's the truth. You can't look at this like as being a white man version. It's just the truth. And I'm like, if you don't get that they are programming into you, if they start off with the man not being of color, it's a lie from the door on through the whole movie. And if you don't get that, you lost the point. And it broke my heart because so many people are like, oh, but it's the truth. It's a lie.
See, this is
the one part's a lie, the whole thing's a lie. And read your Bible and get it right from the source. But I just want to make that comment.
No, that's a very important comment. You see, but just think about it. You can give yourself a test. When you are looking at a movie and you see some white man, some white woman, some white child who is crying and having difficulty, monitor your autonomic nervous system response. Do you begin to tear up? Yes. The same people that teared up at poor white Jesus. See, we're programmed. You don't have to feel bad about this. You see, if we teared up when black people were being hurt, this killing wouldn't be going on. Black people would not be responding to calling themselves bitches and whores and dogs. 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 My walking dog. See, something had to happen critically. If you call yourself a dog, a gangster, a thug, a bitch, a whore, you don't feel sorry for black. You're not in sympathy with black. It's like, kill the niggers. Who cares? Do you see? But this movie came out because are things going well in Iraq? Things didn't go well in Vietnam. Do you see? So the white collective mind is like, we're being bloodied. We've got to pull in sympathy for us. First of all, we need these people to fight for us, not fight for their own cause, to fight for us. So this movie is going to be shown and shown and shown and shown and shown and shown, and black people will go on killing each other. Do you see what I'm saying? All over the planet. The New York Times had a picture of a black man in Haiti having captured somebody from Aristide's group. And he was sitting in the car with his foot up against the neck. One black man with his big shod foot up against the neck of another black man. Front page picture. This is how we are being programmed to treat each other. If you're willing to do that to your image, then you will get applause from racism and white supremacy. You can be a movie star. You can be a rap star. Do you think that white supremacy is going to pay some black young person with all kind of creative genius to write about a rap about study some more, and study and study and study some more, and study and study some more? No. Do you see? Or I will love myself, and I'll respect myself, and I'll respect myself, and I'll love myself, and I love myself, and I'll No. No. See, and Hitler understood image. Hitler said, see, just like Jesus was a Jew in Palestine, he was colored. His co-religionists, some of them, the miscegenated people, followed their fathers back up into Europe. And they worked on trying to get lighter and lighter and lighter. It just takes the definition of Jew as somebody whose mother is a Jew. The father can be any white person. How many black women? Don't raise your hands. I'm going to have sex with a white man and I'll have a lighter baby. Do you all understand? This is what happens to people under white supremacy oppression. It doesn't matter if they're in Central America, South America, the Middle East, Africa, Haiti. Do you see, this is the dynamic. Nobody has to feel bad. This is just decoding the dynamic of racism and white supremacy. So, if we begin to understand how this is structured and how it works, we can begin to go about dismantling it. See, don't get in any fight with anybody about the passion. You say, well, it's interesting. It's an interesting film. You might have an alternative point of view if you looked at it from the frame of reference that this is taking place in the framework of a system of racism, white supremacy. It might appear to you altogether different. You might have some different insights. Yes.
Good evening, Dr. Welsing. I just want to thank you for the lecture and piggyback on the topic of the lecture, imagery, and the economy of the Passion of Christ. I just had a short experience I'd like to share with you and the audience about going to see it. The first week it came out, since I critique films, I really had a hard time even getting in the theater to see the film. And I was kind of monitoring and observing. This was predominantly black area, the black people who were coming in the theater. It was like almost trying to get the last lifeboat to the Titanic. There was black men and specifically black ladies who were actually begging people, I need to get a ticket to see the Passion of Christ. And I said, it kind of scared me. Then I said, maybe I should wait a week and go review this film. If black people are really trying to get in and see this and something up, maybe I need to go and reflect, do a little bit of research. So I went the second week. And the second week I went to go see it, one of the things I noticed about the film, the only characteristics I say that I saw about the film that makes it unusual maybe to traditional biblical movies is the gratuitous violence. As far as the content, it seems pretty average. It has very little information about the Roman domination of the people in that jurisdiction in the world at that particular time, talking about the dynamics of Roman colonial rule. When I was viewing the film, I was taking notes, and behind me about 2 rows, a black lady that's, when the torture scene came up, when this white actor was being beaten by these white Romans, some of the women actually went into hysterics, crying in the audience, breaking down and crying. I've never experienced any type of emotional outlet. It got so bad, I thought I should maybe call 911. I got up. No, I'm being very serious. I got up out of my seat and went back and said, "Is everything all right, Miss?" She said, I just can't help it. I said, "Well, just remember, it's only a movie." And I think your analysis is right on time. It seems to me a very dangerous period of time if one studies the cinema of Nazi Germany and what the Nazis were able to do with film and the ability to persuade people to do outrageous acts and to brainwash people to lockstep to participate in all types of behavior. I think as people of color, when we do go to movies, we should take a pen and pencil and a notepad with us and go in a objective type manner and really analyze the film and not get caught up in an emotional impact of what the film, obviously the people who produce the film, who write the film, is trying to do. Thank you.
Well, see, very interesting. You know, Mel Gibson, that's his name, right, the producer? You know, his hand appeared in the film, nailing in one of the nails. You see, so you think about now does that go to his knowledge that Jesus really was a black man? And of all the things that how he could have inserted himself in the film, he inserts himself in the film, his hand nailing in one of the nails in his hand. Now, to me, that's deep. See, it's deep and revealing as to what is actually happening. You see, but it's like instead of feeling sorry for the victim, the true victim, see, it's like who is really on the cross? See, if we start talking about black male unemployment and all the fathers that are not in the home and all the children that don't have their fathers with them, who is really on the cross? You see, but you walk out of, which is why all of that emotional stuff was going on to really get you. You see, it's like getting people to go along with 911. You couldn't just kill 13 people. You have to kill 3,000. And really make a point. And then you can get everybody, 911, 911, 911. Why don't they want to bring the information forward? Why should any information have to be hidden about what was known before 911? Why should people have to beg for that information? What is there to hide? Do you see? But it's like, and we just kind of go along. I know one point where I was going to go. Jesus in Ebonics is just us. Look at that. Just us. So that if we are looking behind the surface, we see, no, this is a colored man. A colored man. Now see, I don't know how I can go in church thinking that Jesus is colored. See, that just, imagine walking in a church and seeing a black Jesus. Do you feel like staying and increasing your contribution, or do you think you need to change churches? I remember when I was teaching in the Department of Pediatrics, and I was, young, radical. And so I said, I think the Department of Pediatrics should first master understanding the illnesses that affect black children here in the United States, and then we can branch out to the Caribbean, and then in Africa, and we become the experts on health issues pertaining to black children all over the world. And one of my black colleagues who is married to a white lady said, "No, Francis, that would be second-class medicine." See, I don't want to just study black people. Do you all see? See, this is systematic brainwashing. No, I don't want to be in a situation where it's just all black people. I want to be with where the happenings are. Out in the suburbs with gas $3 a gallon. Yes. Wait a minute, here and then over there. Yes.
Dr. Welsing, Mel Gibson, these are some comments on Mel Gibson. He claims he's a devout Catholic. He even belongs to a group that wants to go back to having the Catholic services in Latin. I don't know how many people saw the picture. He came out before the Passion that came out. It's called Signs. And I found it interesting that he played a minister who had, I guess, lost his faith. But the aliens in Signs, if you took well, you didn't have to really take a real good look at when the alien sticks his fingers under the door, his fingers are black, he cuts the fingers off. The alien, I saw the picture, it took me 2 times to see this picture to realize that the alien that picked his son up actually saved his son's life. But his brother with that baseball bat, interestingly, a baseball bat, said, "I don't care what you done." He hits him with the bat and kills him. And of course, when they throw water on him, their skin burns. I find that interesting, in being that that's the picture that came out before the Passion.
Now the aliens, they were dark.
Yeah, they were tall like Michael Jordan. They looked like they were dark, slender, like Africans, very slender hip. They all appeared, what the ones that you saw appeared to be male. They look like tall, slender, black men.
Well, you see, in other words, the white collective, they have to constantly be informed about what the issue is. They're not saying it in overt language. They are saying it symbolically. You see, it's just like white people are saying, well, wait a minute, we don't say nigger anymore or the N-word. But look at the commercials and look at how black people are portrayed and look at the silly acting black men in the commercial. There's one commercial where the black wife with the black man and they're in the drugstore, I think. And she's saying, tell them what telling him. Speak up. Tell him what you want. You see, many commercials are dealing with, it's just like when you see obese black people, could be male or female, obese, and then the film cuts to thin white people. You see, just look at, you see, just rotund, and then a thin white person. They are doing contrast programming. Just like I was going to say further about Adolf Hitler. He knew, and they understood. They had a minister of propaganda whose name was Goebbels. And his job was to create media images of the Jews to justify their being killed. Hitler said they were Tiermensch, meaning subhuman. Now just go home tonight and turn on your TV and look at the images of black people. Hitler said the Jews, life unworthy of life. This is what is being portrayed of us. Life unworthy of life. Don't need education. See, you can just go around in D.C. and see all the schools that have been closed, turned into condominiums for white people. You see the last thing I have in the handout? Should the new District of Columbia anthem be Bye Bye Blackbirds? See, bye No place here for you anymore. Rents, mortgage too high, and there are no schools for your children. Goodbye. Yes, who's next? Wait a minute, where's the mic? Okay.
When I usually start to talk to people about the Passion of the Christ, I think they miss the point that Jesus Christ was a solo mythological figure, because when I read Ancient Egypt by Gerald Massey, that's something that he just re-emphasized over and over again, that Jesus Christ was a solo mythological figure. And then when they go to the Bible, by that time I just think they've missed the whole point.
Well, see, but it's like whether Jesus was a historical figure. Many people think that he was a historical figure, historical times under Roman rule. But what kind of images are being used and given to the majority people on the planet? The majority of the people on the planet are colored people. Why should they be given a God that is white? See, if you say the Son of God is white, your brain has already calculated that the Father is white. If the Son was colored, you would think the Father was colored or black. And so people who go around saying God doesn't have any color, and you say, well, is this Sunday school card, is this a picture of Jesus and it's a white man? Then God has a color in their brain computer. And that color is the color of the sun. And that is being deliberately done in a system of white supremacy. See, if white supremacy didn't matter, you'd have a God that looked like yourself. You see, and you would behave accordingly. You see, but what color is the devil? Does the devil have color? Let's ask again. Does the devil have color? Does anybody say the devil doesn't have color? No. The devil has color, and the devil is not white. You see, so how can people simultaneously say God doesn't have a color, but the devil does? And the fact that the devil is black, there's nothing wrong with that. So no, this is psychological programming so that black people will not be behaving in their own interest, in their own behalf. See, that's just like black men and black women warring against each other, where every human being is half made from father and half from mother. And so when black men and women are talking about they can't stand each other, what could their maximum self-respect score be? See, I'm a black woman. If I say I hate black men, what is my maximum self-respect score? It can only be 50, and that's not passing. Do you see what I'm saying? But do we, see, it's just like monitor the TVs, and how do black people on the TV talk to each other? Do you see, yeah. Do you see, is it ever in gentle, respecting tones? But then monitor the way that white people talk to each other. See, they're programming. The television is a major educational and programming device within the system of racism and white supremacy. What is it teaching? Go home, turn on your television, and flip through the channels. How many white images do you see? See, monitor the image, and then put another dot, is the person speaking intelligently. And see what we come up with for ourselves. It is programming, systematic programming about how we are supposed to perform and how we are supposed to see ourselves for the benefit of the system of white supremacy, for the maintenance of the power equation of white over non-white. See, what if black people were walking along calmly, quietly, black men and women walking along together calmly and quietly, so their children are learning this. respecting themselves, don't start no trouble but will defend themselves if necessary, don't ever hit or injure one another. Now, what do you think the white people would be thinking? Somebody told me in my office this week about a situation in Japan where a black man was in Japan, I guess, doing some kind of business, if I get the story right. And so he was waiting to get on the airplane. The Japanese clerk was seating, calling he had a reservation, etc., calling all the other people to come and get on the plane, and told the black man there was no seat. And so the black man said calmly that he needed to speak to whoever was in charge. He didn't yell and he didn't scream. He spoke very quietly and very calmly and said, I have to be on this flight because of so-and-so. I don't know whether it was the military or whatever. It had to be on that flight. And so the Japanese manager said something like, you spoke softly and you have a lot of power. Just speaking softly. You see now? So if we started, what can we do countering racism, white supremacy? You see, we can look at the list that Mr. Fuller wrote. I added a few things to it. Stop name-calling one another. See, these may seem simple, but not name-calling one another means that a certain level of self-respect has been generated. It influences respect in the other person. Stop name-calling one another. Stop gossiping about one another. Stop squabbling with one another. Stop snitching on one another, informing on one another for reasons of personal gain. Stop cursing one another. Stop being discourteous to one another. Stop being disrespectful to one another. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Do you see? Now imagine what the dynamic would be amongst black people if just those things were being done. We're always talking about business. We got to start business. What if black people were codified? No black person would cheat another black person in business. No black person would steal from another black person in business. What if black people knew you can walk at any time of night around other black people and you don't have to be in fear of injury? What if black male children can go to school and they didn't have to worry about some schoolmate shooting them? See, I have children come in the office. They're not performing in school. Half of them are afraid to be there. Don't know what is going to happen next. Stop fighting one another. Stop killing one another. Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. Stop making dirt and filth the norm. What if walking around in the areas we live felt just like walking on Wisconsin or Connecticut or Foxhall Road? Because every black person got a PhD in broom. See, I think that this dynamic of white supremacy, that's turning the tables. White supremacy tries to program people into disrespecting themselves and one another, and that makes people very weak and vulnerable. What if people turn the tables? See, white people might get on a spaceship and leave. You see, because they would know the people are not going around threatening white people, calling white people names. No, but they are carrying themselves at a level that they have total respect for one another. Men and women having total respect for one another. See, I can tell you about the children coming in my office in crises. because mother and father are fighting. Why should that tear up a child? The people are fighting who made up the genetic base of the child. Do you all understand? It's like a war then is going on inside of your physical body. See, but don't feel bad. Just say, this is interesting. We can put another A up here for white supremacy. Now, this is injustice. But do they have their system of injustice down to a science? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you see? But decoding, just turn on a football game, turn on a basketball game. Those players, those black men are decoding moves before they're made. Decoding tactics and strategies of the other side. The same brain computer can decide to decode the tactics and strategy of system of racism, white supremacy, and have behavioral plays that neutralize. See, in these simple codes, because the system can survive only if non-white people are willing to fight and kill. Look at Africa, the richest continent on the planet. But white supremacy says, no, what you do is go in and you set up a rebel group. And you give the rebel group weapons and uniforms. And then you tell them to fight the other people. Now, we don't want the Haitians anywhere near us, because they were the first colonized people to overturn a European oppressor. Plus, they got goo gobs of melanin. Melanin for days. Deep, thick, real, undiluted melanin. So we got to have them fighting each other. And all over Africa, no matter what so-called country you go in, programming the people to fight each other. Having gone in initially that the image of God is white. So when I come to you as a white person and tell you this is what you should be doing, killing your own kith and kin, God has spoken to you. And you will obey the will of God. All I have to do is flash my white face, and everything gets in order. That's like if a white person walked in this room. Everything would get quiet. One white person. See, and it might be some uncodified black person. If the white person turns slightly red with the discussion of white supremacy, some black person would rise up. All due respect, Dr. Welsing, I don't think that color really has anything to do with it. Now, you can put your money on that. See, like when I'm going to London next week, there's going to be black people in the audience, and most assuredly there will be some white people that pay £30 to come in. I'm going to introduce my lecture and say, now I'm speaking to the white people who are here. Do I have your permission to talk about racism, white supremacy? The reason that I'm asking you is that some black person might think, if you don't give me your permission, that you will be upset. And they will feel the necessity to attack me. Do you all follow what I'm saying? So the white people will say, oh yeah, yes. Thank you very much. This is very important. You see, because we have been totally programmed to protect your interest at all cost. You see, and there's a lot of intermarriage over here. You see, so there are people who feel they would have to be offended. But if I have your permission, because you are in power, then I can proceed. You see, then everything will flow very quietly from that point. That will not be a lie. That will be absolutely true. Absolutely true. Because it might be some white lady who's married to a black man, and she hears a discussion about white, and she starts nudging him. Are you going to let her say that?
Well, Dr. Welsing, I mean, really, color does not matter.
Right.
My children are mixed.
They are in charge, yes. Wait a minute, Sabrina, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment about a commercial I saw. It was for Cottonelle bath tissue and paper towels. And the image was a black female in her home, in the bathroom, in her bathrobe. And she was using the products on a puppy. And they showed her putting him in the tub and caring for the puppy. And the message at the end was something like, Cottonelle, for taking care of your family.
Wow. Oh, wonderful. Give white people a... See, now, what can black people say? The only thing that the white people need to come back and say, well, you call each other dog and bow wow and bitch. You know, bitch is female dog. So, you know, I thought that this was the language that you all wanted. Do you all understand? Yes, go ahead.
My daughter had to ask the question about the conference that you're going to in London. What if the white people say, no, you can't speak about it?
They're not going to say it. See, because why would they not say it? Because then they would reveal their hand. See, in other words, no, you better not talk about racism. They wouldn't be caught on this side of Sunday saying that. No. They're not. See, now they might, and then Dr. Welsing would have to come back and announce, I was wrong. But see, the conference is Dr. Frances Welsing, author of the ISIS Papers, is going to talk about racism and its solutions. So why would they have paid to come? You see, so they're not going to do it, but I will come back and tell you, yes, sir.
Excuse me, I hope everybody can hear me on this one. As you said, like, there's a lot of controversial stuff on the television, and I don't know if y'all noticed, I don't know if y'all looked at Comedy Central. They had this show called The Chappelle Show. Dave Chappelle, he's from D.C., he's a comedian from D.C., and he has like a lot of controversial stuff. I saw this commercial from Dave Chappelle he was reading letters from people that viewed his show, and he got a letter from a white person saying that they had a lot of white people on the show, and that was like disgracing and like I guess showing a bad image of white people, and he was saying that if you look through television, that they always have these nice ways of describing white people. So what I'm doing is giving them a fair and balance. So I was thinking that was pretty deep. So I just wanted to share that with y'all.
So he was showing some ugly pictures, or what?
Oh no, not exactly ugly pictures. He was just making fun of the letter, because he said. Making fun of white people in a way, because they always showed like nice people do the concept, like he said, the Cottonelle thing.
I see.
So
okay.
Balance.
Very good. Okay.
Hi, Dr. Welsing.
Hi,
everyone. I had a bootleg take of the
passion.
Okay.
And the way, if you think about it, the way that they beat him, humiliated him, was just the way they did slaves. That's just exactly what I thought the whole time I watched them beat. They beat him back and front. They practically tore his skin off his body. They just beat him. And are you going to tape the show in England?
Somebody will tape it. So if it turns out, I'll bring it back.
Good. Okay.
Well, you see, but it's like they beat him as though he was a black person. But they made him not a black person. You see, so if you look at what's happening in the world, does the system of racism, white supremacy, feel itself under threat? That's why they see a terrorist under every chair. You see, a terrorist. The terrorists are going to get us. Who are the terrorists? You see, so they are talking about they are in fear. In fear of what? I say in fear of genetic annihilation. See, we have to get inside of where their thinking actually is. Now, where our thinking is and what we see, we're on another planet because we haven't understood them. If somebody did a survey amongst black people and said, what is the nature of the system that we're living under? I would say 99.9% of people would say we're living under a system of democratic capitalism or democracy or capitalism. They would not say we are living under a system of racism, white supremacy. But do people who classify themselves as white know what is essential for their survival? All you have to do is go to work tomorrow and see how you're treated. Do you see what I'm saying? They know what is essential for their survival. Is there anybody in this room who feels that they have gotten promotions on time and been paid in a just way? Wait a minute, no hands? Are you saying you have gotten promotions on time, been paid in a... No. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, that's because the tiny minority of white people that are on this planet know when they say, I'm white. Did you see the census form? The first category was white. It didn't say French American, Italian American, German American, Yugoslav American. It said white. White. Because that term means something to them. It means alert, alert, the potential of white genetic annihilation on planet Earth. We are outnumbered. We are genetically vulnerable. Alert, alert. Economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. On guard, on guard. So what does that mean that you do with a black child who is in a mixed school? Who's very, very, very smart, gets the top grades. How do you treat that child under education? This is for the people who classify themselves as white, who are interested in preserving white supremacy. Do they award that child or say you're outstanding, you're the head of the class, go forward? No, they criticize the child until the parent takes the child out of the school. Do you see meaning? No, they know what to do. Do black people get cars at the same price that white people do? Do black people get insurance at the same rate? Do black people get mortgages with the same? Do black people get remodeling loans? Okay. Yes. We're going to stop it. Okay.
Greetings, Dr. Welsing.
Greetings, real loud.
And everyone present. I wanted to tell you about a play that I saw last night at Arena Stage called Yellow Man. And I recommend that play very highly. It deals with how children are taught self-hate on dealing with color. And the setting is in the Geechee Islands, down in like the Beaufort area or the islands off the coast of South Carolina. And it's dealing with these pitch black people having learned to hate themselves and to love the light skin, whereas and at the same time, though, they're being pitted against those people. They criticize them, call them weak, and the light-skinned people are fighting against the dark-skinned. And it was just a big, big war against, of color, and they teach it from the children. The children learn the self-hate before they go out. So when they get it outside, they're already totally sensitive and ready to fight because they can't fight those parents who've been hating them from home.
Now, did they bring in that white people teach this to black people and black people teach it to their offspring, or did they just deal with what goes on inside of the black community?
They just deal with what goes on inside of the black community. And I was noticing they don't even mention how those few light-skinned people even got to be that way. They make it seem as if there's only a few of them in this setting, in this play, and in these towns, but they don't deal with how they got to be light, and they don't deal with
racism,
white supremacy picture. They just deal with the fact that they are taught this self-hate from their parents, little black ugly fat thing and little, yellow weak, yellow weak boy and all these kinds of talk. But I feel that it's a great piece to start the conversation, to get those questions answered in groups after you leave, that setting.
That's a good idea, do you see? But just like strategically, the white people will look at, just like they will look at, oh, look at all the crime in the black community. Look at this. Oh, look at what the black people are doing. But what is causing it? Do you see? They will not deal with what's causing it. So after that kind of discussion, the black people are just left at hating and disliking and attacking each other, as opposed to focusing on racism, white supremacy, understanding that racism, white supremacy needs to be replaced with justice. Every black person, every person of color on the planet can contribute. See, if you just only do one thing, no gossiping, you are contributing to ending racism and replacing it with justice. Let us stop, ladies and gentlemen. We will meet next month, the second Thursday. Danny has the tapes over here. Thank you. 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 Thank you.